Many of you have been talking about ICAST 2025 online. You've been watching a lot of the videos, a lot of the creators that are there. And today I wanted to give my thoughts and my first impressions of the kayak industry specific offerings at ICAST of 2025. So was it a huge embarrassing failure, or are some of the products maybe not as bad as some of us may think? Drop down in the comments below after watching the video. Kind of let me know what your thoughts are, what's your favorite product, and maybe some of the companies that might have missed the mark here. So we're going to go over Hobie, we'll go over Yak Attack, we'll go over the new Garmin motor, and we'll even talk about the FluxJet kayak that a lot of you are talking about as well. Stay tuned to the end of the video, and we're going to go over a kayak that I haven't seen hardly anybody talk about, and I really want to know a little bit more about, but I think it's going to be one of the more exciting offerings this coming year. So anyways, guys, thanks for coming by. Let's get into my thoughts on ICAST 2025. So going over just real quick, ICAST. So what is ICAST? ICAST is not a kayak specific event. And I feel like a lot of people get upset that more companies aren't here or there aren't more kayak specific ideas and things showcased at this event. And and again, this is just my opinion from being in the industry. July is kind of late to launch something for 2025. So typically you're going to see prototypical things, prototypes that are going to be winter, fall, or maybe even spring. And it's a really rough time to release items because these companies are still trying to sell 2025 products. And then when you come out with that new exciting thing, it can really kind of leave your retailers in the dust, if you will. So why are you going to buy the product that's out right now when there's a new exciting product coming out? Now, as a consumer, you may not care about that as much, but these kayak companies are in it to sell product and continue to sell products. So it's kind of a weird deal. I would like to see a kayak specific event and really kind of do it in the fall. Get ready, get ramped up for that 2026 season and beyond. So that's just my thoughts on that. But ICAST is really just a fishing expo with maybe some kayak things mixed in. Maybe kayak companies are crashing the party a little bit. So the first thing I'll talk about a couple of the companies, and then I'll talk about my thoughts about each individual offering here. So first thing is Hobie. Hobie has really taken some shots here the last couple of years. There's still a lot up in the air on Hobie. Hobie is kind of the company that everyone loves to hate or loves to love, but there's really not a lot of gray area there. I've got my own issues with kind of things that Hobie's done in the last few years, but they still make a quality product. And for ICAST 2025, they really came out kind of flat in my opinion, but I expected that. I didn't expect them to set the world on fire. They did kind of a safe offering in the ITRA Angler edition. So this is basically a play on their existing ITRA series, but maybe a little bit more fishing accessories. Now, if you're looking at an inflatable and you've got kind of a bigger budget, the ITRA series is a phenomenal product. Hobie does make a very, very good inflatable platform. So I've been on these, I enjoy them, they're stable, they're lightweight. The drive on a inflatable is very, very maneuverable, very fast. Just like any inflatable, it is going to be a little bit of an enemy of the wind, but the ITRA Angler does have the 180 drive, which gives you that reverse and forward pull tab. It's going to have your kick-up fins. It's going to be lightweight. Think of an inflatable Hobie Lynx. Now, as far as the MSRP goes, I'm not sure on that yet, but they really played it safe, integrating a little bit of the H-rails, which again, that's something similar to you see on the Lynx series. It is manufactured overseas, a lot like the Lynx. Parts availability can become somewhat of an issue, and we still don't know what's happening with tariffs and things like that. So whatever the MSRP is, maybe announced today, could change a little bit from month to month there, depending on what's going on politically, of course. But the ITRA Angler, I wouldn't say is a huge fail or a huge win, but a safe play from Hobie pretty heavily. Hobie has really been pushing their eyewear series pretty hard, and ICAST 2025 was no different. They had a big booth there. They were really selling those hard, and you saw a lot of content out about their eyewear line. from Hobie. So they're really focusing on that. That's kind of been their push here lately, and not a lot of innovation in the kayak side of things. So Hobie, again, playing it safe, not too high, not too low, but honestly, just my personal opinion, kind of where they needed to be at this moment right now. So Yak Attack. Yak Attack really made some waves here this year. So a lot of the things that I saw that I liked from them, they're focusing obviously on their already strong lineup, but you've seen some things come from Yak Attack here lately that I thought was a little different from their previous business model, namely their cushion. The cushion was a great product. I did a video kind of comparing it to the Kayak cushion. The Yak Attack cushion is very different because it is manufactured in China. That may change, obviously. They are looking to kind of go domestic on this, but I thought that was really interesting, and it was kind of a precursor to the biggest noise that they made, which was the motor, the plug-in kayak motor, very similar to, say, maybe a Bixby style motor, but a lot of people called them out immediately because there were links to Alibaba, which is kind of the Chinese Amazon variant, where there was a motor that was exactly like the Yak Attack motor, and it looked like Yak Attack simply took that motor, maybe bought the rights to it, slapped a Yak Attack sticker on it, and then marked it up about $1,600. So that is something that, if true, and then honestly, just from the content that I've looked at, I don't have any reason to believe it's not true. So I thought that was a big, big miss. Yak Attack getting into the motor market, I thought was really unnecessary. I feel like Yak Attack business model would really have done better focusing on accessories for motorizing kayaks. I would love to see a motor mount from Yak Attack, things like that. You can do that domestically. You can do it at a price competitive point, and they already do the through-hole wiring. They already do all that. Just maybe neater options to do it, and kind of following the kayak industry and maybe specific companies that are focusing on that riggability of their kayaks. So I wasn't really extremely impressed with the Yak Attack motor, but maybe that might be kind of up your alley. I feel like it's a big cost for maybe not a big push from the motor, because most people that buy something like a water snake or a lower power motor, they eventually want more from it. And in the long run, you really end up paying more like that. But I understand budget is a thing. Newport is going to give you that thrust. Torqeedo is going to give you that thrust that a lot of you are looking for. But I didn't feel like any of the offerings this year gave you beyond that. You're not looking to push the envelope that much more with a lot of the offerings here. One thing that Yak Attack did do that I really was the Blackpack Pros. So the Blackpack Pros, they kind of gave maybe a plastic dip variation of it. So different color schemes. Think of those of you that have like camo colored kayaks or different kayaks that you want to have a little bit of a flair to it. I thought this was a great offering. You don't have to set the industry on fire to kind of be a success at ICAST. And I thought Yak Attack did that really well with their Blackpack Pro. And I'd like to see that a little bit more with some of their other accessories, which if that ends up being successful for them, I'm sure they will do. They want to add that custom flair to it and make it their own. Think of a motorcycle. Most people with the motorcycles, the first thing you're doing is you're adding things to it and kind of customizing it to yourself. You're starting to see that with the Yak Attack products, and I really like that. One more thing from Yak Attack that I saw was the Wheelie Bar Cart. Or the tow and stow Wheelie Bar Cart. This was something that I personally did not like when I first saw, but after kind of looking and thinking a little bit more about that, in other words, just not going too emotion driven on, okay, why is that a thing? Because it looks like it wasn't super sturdy, but looking at how it's mounted, it kind of gives you a crossover between a cart and landing gear. But in my opinion, what it does is it takes the negatives out of the landing gear, namely damage to your hull on a huge kayak. And this will allow some of you that want to kind of have a fully loaded kayak on landing gear, because all it really does is it allows you to lift the rear end of it up, the wheels go under it, and you turned it into a cart. So instead of having all of the kayak weight and your gear weight on the top of your kayak, ripping your rails out, this is going to allow you to carry your kayak more efficiently, more effectively, and without worrying about damaging the hull too bad. Now, one thing that I saw before ICAST that really kind of excited me was the native hammer. So I've already contacted Big Adventures on this, and This one is really kind of hit me in the feels, if you will. You're talking about a kayak. You're starting to see companies focus more on performance. So the number one question I get asked about a kayak is how stable it is. We're getting to the point right now, I hope so, where they're all stable. Stability is always going to be up to the individual, but these are all going to be stable. But now we're looking more into performance. You don't want just stability and then not be able to move it through the water. You're putting motors on these. Motors are kind of the future for the casual kayak angler. Now remember how I said that. So motors are not just for the competitive angler anymore. These are for people who want to get out, want to cover some ground, have a good time, but also get a little bit more speed and efficiency to it. This kayak in the Hammer is I'm really excited about, because it's going to slide through the water a little bit more efficiently. So you're going to get a little bit better speed. You're going to get a little bit better run time out of your batteries, and also the new drive. So this allows you to run a motor on it, whether it be a bow mount motor or a stern mount motor. You can motor to your spot, bring the motor up, and then it gives you an easier way to deploy and bring up your pedal drive where it just kind of folds out of place. This allows you to maximize the space that you have on your stand-up deck, so you can stand up, walk around a little bit without a big clunky pedal drive being in the way. And it's the same technology in their propel drive, which in my opinion with prop drives is the best out there. Best in warranty, best in durability, and I'm really excited to see kind of what changes and what upgrades they've made to this. But they really kind of thought of everything on this. This reminded me a lot, the 13-foot Titan and the Titan X. So you kind of got the best of both worlds. I don't know the weight on it yet. That will really be interesting to see. Is it heavy as the Titan X series? And is it going to be more efficient, which I definitely think it's going to be. You're still going to have the stability. Some of the upgrades they did on this was absolutely phenomenal. Large tank well, battery storage, nice hatch area in the front, and able to get your drive, because a lot of us that motor a pedal drive kayak, a lot of times they make a decision to leave the pedal drive in the back of the truck because they just don't want to fool with it, messing up their clean deck space. This allows you to maintain that open deck space and still have that pedal drive there. Okay, so let's talk about the FluxJet kayak that everyone's been talking about. And I got to be honest with you, the first impression just from looking at it is it looked like a big box store kayak with a jet system on it. So it didn't look incredibly impressive from the outside looking in, but hearing about some of the features of this and watching the rep kind of talk online about this, it started to perk my interest a little bit. So this one was kind of the biggest surprise for me. Obviously, when I saw the concept of it, it was kind of like, oh boy, everyone's going to overreact to this. Everyone's going to go out and buy this, and then it's not going to be what people think it is. A kayak at $2,900 with jet technology, a frame seat, ample storage. It's going to be stable enough, just looking for the design. So, I mean, it's not going to be just a world changer as far as something different, but the propulsion system, in my opinion, is a step in the right direction. This is going to open the door to different technology for propulsion. So this is going to be something that's tucked away. Everything is internally done, so you're not going to have a lot of wires and cables everywhere. This is where I thought the industry was going to go, and I'm kind of happy to see that already starting. You know, you got cables and steering lines and all that on a lot of propulsions, and I'm happy to see that starting to disappear, starting to be more internally done, and just a little cleaner of a setup. So this, according to the rep for FluxJet, you can run a 12-volt battery on this, or all the way up to a 60-volt battery. Really think about that for a second. So a 12-volt battery is going to give you obviously a decent amount of thrust, but nothing crazy. And then when he said when you get up to about 24 to 36 volt is where you're really going to see the performance gains on this. So this is going to give you more speed, better performance, better efficiency. But those of you wanting more propulsion without really seeing the speeds on this, firsthand, putting those bigger batteries, the system is going to be able to adapt to those different batteries. So while I may not be just over the moon about this specific kayak, I'm a little more excited about the technology, maybe bleeding over into some other manufacturers and maybe building on that. So I definitely want to give credit where credit is due, because there are some great things about this kayak. Also, according to the rep, you can float and motor this in about 4 or 5 inches of water. Now, I don't know the truth behind that, and that's obviously going to be dependent on how much you load it up. Think about your batteries, your fishing gear, how big of an angler you are in that kayak. It's going to sit it lower in the water, but this is going to allow you to motor around, or jet around, if you will, and it's not going to bring the bottom of the boat down as you're really throttling it down. And it's also a very simple operation. You got a really small wheel on the left side, forward, neutral, and reverse. And everything is internal. So I thought that was really, really nice too. You don't have cables and wires all around. It's a very clean looking setup. And it's a very simple looking setup. Again, according to the rep, nothing is held in place by more than 4 bolts. So that allows you to field strip the whole kayak, if you will, with just taking a few bolts out. So if you ever do need to replace parts, and they said they have no problem getting the parts, whether that's from overseas or here domestically. Parts availability is always going to be a big thing when you're talking about warranty and issues, and also obviously cost. But at $2,900, this kayak, I don't know how bad the cost could be, and it seems relatively simple to work on and replace parts. So I'm really excited about the ideas of some of this, but until I'm able to get hands-on and really look at this personally, I'm kind of cautiously optimistic, if you will. But a shallow water motorized kayak, functionality out of the box, so there's no real installation needed. You throw a battery in it and go, and the ability for the system to adapt to different batteries, because a lot of us have batteries sitting around that's been in the kayak fishing game for a while. This is going to allow a lot of the casual kayak anglers to be out on the water, to be motorized, because let's be honest, motorizing a kayak is not just for your tournament angler anymore. These are more for your casual kayakers to get out, to enjoy fishing, enjoy a weekend fishing trip without worrying about wearing yourself out, getting to your spots. And I'm kind of excited where this technology is going to go, because it's only going to improve, in my opinion. And also, something I just forgot to mention on the FluxJet kayak is, according to them, you're around 100 pounds fully rigged. That is another thing. That is about almost 100 pounds less than a lot of your big heavy-duty motorized kayaks. I'm just more that my only biggest hesitation on this specific kayak is your build quality. Not so much with the motor, but with the kayak itself. How durable is this kayak going to be? What kind of warranty are you looking at? And again, parts availability, while they say it may not be an issue, being in the industry, especially in the last 3 or 4 years, just knowing that can be a huge, huge black eye to any company having an exciting product, selling a lot of exciting product, but not being able to service that product. All right, so I really wanted to talk about the Garmin motor. So the Garmin motor was something that is the information on it has been out for a couple of weeks now. Many of you have reacted, a lot of negativity around it, just looking at the price. And I definitely understand that, because seeing prices go up, my first impression was kind of the same thing. Okay, you got this crazy price on something that's really not doing anything that the XI3 didn't do. It's just sitting on the back. So a stern-mounted spot-lock trolling motor, okay, what are we getting here that we haven't already seen? Well, after looking a little bit more into this product and looking at this showcase, I was very surprised at some of the features on this motor. Now, is this going to be a motor for everybody? No. I've got a Newport NK300 on my Bonafide PWR. That's probably going to be where I stay at. But this motor specifically had a lot of features that really excited me, again, for the future, but also today. This kayak motor has a ton of features that I think are both ahead of their time and well past due to see on a motor. So specifically what I liked is the ability to run 12 volt and 24 volt. So those of you that had the XI3 that still have your really good quality lithium battery, you're still going to be able to use that. This motor will get 30 pound thrust out of a 12 volt motor, but if you use a 24 volt motor, you're going to get 50 pounds of thrust. That was a big kicker for me, because I felt like a lot of people focused on just the 30 pound thrust part of that conversation, and that maybe they didn't know that they could do a 24 volt adaptation to this and give you more performance out of that. But it's going to give you more power, probably more efficiency, which they already claim you're getting that out of this motor anyway. It's going to be a little quieter. It's going to be a little more efficient. But let's talk about the foot steering. The foot controls, which does add a price to this. The foot controls I thought was phenomenal. It looks to be a Bluetooth setup, so it is wireless, which I thought was a really cool setup. You got 2 pedals. You can control your throttle and your steering from those pedals. And the only thing you need to operate those pedals are 2 AA batteries. And they claim that 2 AA batteries will last an entire season on the pedals. That was really, really interesting to hear, and what you can do with it. So you've got the throttle, you've got the steering on the pedals, but you've also got these little levers that you can kick on the side with your feet to control your spot lock and a lot of other things. You can also sync them up with a lot of your fish finders. So again, you can control it from those displays. Another feature on this kayak that I thought was really cool and really overdue was the MOB module, or Man Overboard. So this is a little Bluetooth sensor that you can just clip to your PFD. If you fall overboard, it's going to automatically shut off the motor, and it doesn't require to have like a long string or anything. It looks like almost a little air tag that's clipped to your vest. It's out of the way. If you fall over, you get a certain amount of distance there, it's going to stop the motor and allow that angler to get back to your kayak. It does require you to have it on you, obviously, which again, that's always going to be a situation where you're going to need to be aware of what you need to have on you. But also, you can clip that. It's got a little carabiner clip on it, and you are good to go. So I like a stern mount option because I'm just not a fan. I find myself growing more and more frustrated with the bow mount motor setup, getting in the way of your cast and reeling back in. A lot of us have been reeling in a fish or a lure, and you're worried about getting into your kayak motor, and some of us have done that. So I like keeping the openness of the front end of the kayak, but still having that spot lock capability behind there. But the foot controls I thought was super, super cool, and it's not a kayak specific thing either. So I really like seeing that as well. So last but not least, I want to talk about a kayak that I kind of saw and I did a little bit more research on, and I have heard nobody talking about this kayak. I even surprised one of my friends, Chris Funk, on this kayak, and he was just as kind of interested in this as I was. So Florida did the surf show. So Florida did the Surf Expo here not too long ago, and Crescent Kayak was there with what they call the Crest Craft. This is going to be a little bit more of a skiff style boat, but it's a 6 horsepower rated, and he had, I believe it was a Mercury on the back, a Mercury motor on the back of this, had the stand-up bar, had a simple seat on it, a flat craft. Now, I know there's not a shortage of skiff style kayaks out there right now. Think of the XTR 130, think of the SKF 117 from Bonafide, think of the K-Craft from that Crescent already does. They just made kind of a bigger and better fishing platform. There's a lot of stuff out there similar to it, but I'm really curious to see how Crescent does on this, because we all know Crescent really specializes in performance hulls for the paddler. I like to see them get into the motor, although I don't want to see them get fully immersed in that personally. I like their simpler setups. I like their good paddling platforms. I think they're always going to do that, obviously, and then obviously give you a lighter platform. Now, are they going to be a kayak company that you want to go to where you want to rig it up with 2 motors, you want a 500-pound capacity or more? Probably not. But this skiff was really, really nice to see a motorized system that's going to stay on top of the water and maybe have enough weight where you're not getting blown around in the water too much there. It was a really cool setup for you fly fishermen out there, or just you anglers that want to get into some flats, pull the motor up in some shallows, and maybe move it around paddleboard style. I like simple setups, and I thought this was a huge step in the right direction. And honestly, Crescent doing some crazy things, getting a more diverse lineup is a really, really good step for them, in my opinion, and I think that's going to bode well for them. All right, everybody, so that's my take on ICAST 2025. I thought there were some really good things in there. I thought there were some things that may have fell short of expectation, but all in all, I think it was a very successful offering. It just, maybe a lot of people were expecting to have something that wasn't offered in there, but I think you're going to see more innovation moving toward the later part of the year and the beginning part of the year, and not necessarily in July of one year looking forward that far. So there are things out there in the works. There are exciting offerings, big shout out to the companies that go to these events, that are getting out in front of people and then pushing the envelope. Because whether I personally think it's a fail or a win, I always respect companies that are out there doing it because they're at the forefront. Now, copycat things, I'm just not a huge fan of. I don't care if it's a domestic company or a foreign company. I never like seeing ideas go to another company and just cheapen it just to sell things at a lower cost and a lower quality point. But nonetheless, it's out there. Please do your due diligence when you're looking at products, because sometimes, anytime really, in fishing and kayak specific industry, you're going to have to think, is this too good to be true? Because most of the time it probably is. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching the video. We'll see you on the next one. Again, keep an eye out for more content. Check me out on my Take Me to the River series. We'll be doing another one of those here pretty quickly, and we'll get that out to you as soon as possible. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching the video, and we'll see you on the next one.